"Mommy, why is everyone staring at us?" The small voice cut through the murmur of the garden party like a knife through butter. My daughter Emma's hand tightened around mine, her wide brown eyes, James's eyes, looking up at me with that innocent confusion only a 4-year-old can wear so purely. I squeezed her tiny fingers gently and smiled down at her, then at her twin brother Noah, who was clutching my other hand with the same nervous energy. "Because," I said softly, my voice steady despite the thundering in my chest, "sometimes people forget that miracles happen when they're not watching." The backyard was decorated like something out of a magazine. Blue and white balloons clustered in perfect arches. A dessert table that probably cost more than my monthly groceries. A banner that read, "Baby Boy Johnson, coming soon," stretched between 2 oak trees, fluttering in the June breeze. And there, frozen mid-laugh near the punch bowl, stood James. My ex-husband. The man who told me I was broken. Who said my body was a graveyard where dreams went to die. Who walked out on our marriage with a post-it note that simply read, "I need a real family. Someone who can actually give me children." His face had gone pale, the kind of pale that happens when ghosts walk through doors they were never supposed to open. Next to him stood Ashley, his new wife, 25 and glowing with that third trimester radiance, her hand protectively cradling her swollen belly. Her smile had fractured into something between confusion and alarm. The entire party had gone silent. 60 pairs of eyes locked onto me and my children. The DJ's music still played, some cheerful pop song about sunshine and happiness, but no one was listening anymore. Someone's champagne glass slipped from their fingers and shattered on the patio stones. I took a breath, smoothed down my emerald dress, and walked forward. Sometimes the sweetest revenge isn't screaming or plotting or destroying someone's life with your bare hands. Sometimes it's just existing. Sometimes it's showing up when they thought you'd be hiding in the dark, broken and forgotten. Sometimes revenge is just being everything they swore you'd never be, in front of everyone they wanted to impress. Hey, before I take you through this whole beautiful mess of a story, how are you doing? Seriously, I want you to know that if you've ever felt discarded, replaced, or told you weren't enough, this story is for you. Hit that like button right now, subscribe to this channel, and share this with someone who needs to remember that the people who underestimate you don't get to write the final chapter. Because trust me, what I'm about to tell you is going to make you believe in poetic justice again. Now let me start from the beginning. 5 years earlier, I met James at a hospital charity gala. I was 27, working double shifts as a trauma nurse at County General, exhausted but determined to make a difference in the world. He was 30, a rising corporate lawyer with a smile that could light up a courtroom and charm that made you feel like you were the only person in the room. I remember the exact moment our eyes met across the ballroom. He was standing near the silent auction table, bidding on a weekend getaway package, and when he looked up and saw me, he stopped mid-sentence. Just stopped, like the world had paused to let him take me in. "You're not drinking champagne," he said when he walked over, his voice smooth and confident. I held up my glass of water with a small smile. "Night shift tomorrow. Can't afford to be fuzzy-headed when people's lives are in my hands." He looked at me like I just said something profound. A nurse who takes her work seriously. "I like that." He extended his hand. "James. James Mitchell." "Maurin," I replied, shaking his hand. His grip was firm, warm, and lingered just a second longer than necessary. "And yes, I take it seriously. Kind of comes with the territory when you're stitching people back together at 3 in the morning. He laughed, this genuine, full-bodied laugh that made me feel clever and seen. "Let me buy you coffee sometime. Proper coffee. The kind that actually keeps you awake through those night shifts." I should have said no. Should have recognized the smoothness, the way his charm felt almost practiced. But I was tired of being alone, tired of coming home to an empty apartment that smelled like disinfectant in takeout containers. So I said yes. 3 months later, he proposed. It was raining, this soft, romantic rain that made the city lights blur into watercolor paintings. We were in his car, parked outside my apartment after dinner, and he turned to me with this intensity in his eyes that made my breath catch. "Maurin, I've never met anyone like you," he said, taking my hand. "You're strong, compassionate, real. You don't play games. You don't pretend to be something you're not." He pulled out a small velvet box. "Marry me. Build a life with me. Give me a family. The ring was beautiful, a simple solitaire that caught the streetlight and threw tiny rainbows across the dashboard. And when I looked into his eyes, I saw my future. Sunday mornings making breakfast together, kids running through the backyard, growing old on a porch swing somewhere. Yes, I whispered, tears streaming down my face. Yes, I'll marry you. The wedding was perfect. Small, intimate, at a garden venue with fairy lights and white roses. My mother cried. His parents flew in from Connecticut and welcomed me like I was already family. When James said his vows, his voice cracked with emotion. You are my everything, Marin. My partner, my best friend, the mother of my future children. Future children. Those words would come back to haunt me in ways I couldn't imagine. The first year of marriage was bliss. We bought a small house in the suburbs with a backyard and a picket fence. I kept working my shifts at the hospital while James climbed the corporate ladder at his firm. We talked about starting a family, picked out paint colors for what would be the nursery, debated baby names over morning coffee. I think if we have a boy, we should name him after my grandfather, James said one Saturday morning, flipping through a magazine while I made scrambled eggs. Henry. Strong, classic. And if we have a girl? I asked, smiling as I set his plate down. Emma, he said without hesitation. It means universal or whole. Perfect for our daughter. I kissed the top of his head, my heart so full it hurt. Emma it is. We started trying that month. At first, it was exciting. Romantic. We'd laugh about working on our family and make jokes about having twins running us ragged in a few years. But month after month, the pregnancy test came back negative. 1 line instead of 2. Empty instead of full. It's okay, James would say, pulling me into his arms when I'd cry. These things take time. We're young. Healthy. It'll happen. After a year of trying, I suggested we see a specialist. Dr. Patterson was kind, thorough and honest. She ran every test imaginable, blood work, ultrasounds, hormone panels. James got tested too, though he joked his way through it like it was no big deal. Everything looks normal, Dr. Patterson finally said, her hands folded on her desk. Sometimes it just takes longer for some couples. There's no obvious medical reason you can't conceive. I'd recommend continuing to try naturally for another 6 months, and if nothing happens, we can discuss fertility treatments. 6 months became a year. A year became 18 months. And slowly, almost imperceptibly, James started to change. The joke stopped. The reassurances became shorter, colder. He started working late more often, coming home after I'd already gone to bed. When I tried to talk about our options, IVF, adoption, fostering, he'd shut down. I don't want someone else's kid, he snapped one night when I mentioned adoption. I want my own child. Is that so wrong? No, I said softly, hurt blooming in my chest. But James, we have options. We don't have to give up. He looked at me then, and for the first time, I saw something cold in his eyes. Something that made my blood run ice cold. Maybe you should have told me you were broken before I married you. The words hung in the air like poison. What? I whispered, my voice barely audible. You heard me. He grabbed his jacket. I'm going out. The door slammed, and I sat in the silence of our living room, the room where we'd planned to have family movie nights and Christmas mornings, and felt something inside me crack. Things deteriorated fast after that. James became distant, critical, cruel. He'd make comments about my body, about how I was letting myself go, even though I was working 50-hour weeks and still trying to keep our home together. He stopped touching me, stopped looking at me with anything resembling love. I found the text messages by accident. I wasn't snooping. I swear I wasn't. His phone buzzed on the kitchen counter while he was in the shower, and when I glanced at the screen, I saw a name I didn't recognize. Ashley. Can't wait to see you tonight. You make me feel alive again. My hands shook as I unlocked his phone. I knew his passcode. We'd always shared everything. The message thread was long, intimate, filled with the kind of words he used to say to me. You're so beautiful. So young and full of life. She doesn't understand me like you do. I should have waited for someone like you. There were photos. Her in lingerie. Him shirtless in what looked like a hotel room. Dates, times, plans to meet up while I was working night shifts. I sat down on the kitchen floor, the phone still in my hand, and felt the last piece of my heart shatter. When James came out of the shower, towel around his waist, he found me sitting there with tears streaming down my face and his phone on the tile beside me. He didn't apologize, didn't try to explain or beg for forgiveness. He just looked at me with this cold, dead expression and said, "I want a divorce." "James." "She's pregnant," he continued, his voice flat. "Ashley's pregnant. 8 weeks. She can give me what you can't." The room spun. I thought I might vomit. "How long?" I managed to ask. 6 months. He said it so casually, like he was telling me the weather. I tried Marin. I really did. But I can't spend my whole life with someone who can't give me children. I deserve to be a father. He walked into our bedroom and started packing a bag. I don't remember much of what happened next. I think I asked him not to go. I think I begged, actually. But he just kept packing, methodical and efficient, like he'd been planning this moment for months. Before he left, he turned at the door and said, "I'll have my lawyers send over the papers. Please don't make this difficult. Thank you for making this easy. Thank you for making this easy." Like I was doing him a favor. Like I was the one who owed him something. The door closed, and I was alone. The apartment was silent. Not the peaceful kind of silence, the kind that presses against your eardrums and makes you aware of every breath, every heartbeat, every second ticking by in the darkness. I'd been sitting on the couch for 3 hours. Maybe 4. Time had stopped meaning anything the moment James walked out with his packed bag and his casual cruelty. The divorce papers arrived exactly 1 week later. A courier knocked on the door at 8 a.m. on a Saturday, the kind of morning James and I used to spend in bed together, lazy and wrapped in each other. Now I answered the door in the same clothes I'd worn for 2 days, my hair unwashed, my eyes hollow. "Sign here, please," the courier said, not looking at me. Just another delivery. Just another life ending in triplicate. I signed. My hand didn't even shake anymore. I think I'd run out of the ability to feel anything. Inside the manila envelope was everything that proved our marriage had been real. Property division, asset separation, a dissolution of everything we'd built together. And clipped to the front page was a sticky note in James's handwriting. "Keep the house. I don't need reminders. Jay, keep the house." Like it was a consolation prize. Like he was being generous by leaving me with the empty rooms and the nursery we'd never use and the bed where I'd cried myself to sleep every night since he left. I called my mother that afternoon. "Sweetheart," she said when she heard my voice, and that one word, the tenderness in it, broke something loose inside me. I started sobbing, the kind of crying that comes from somewhere so deep you didn't know it existed. "He left me, Mom." I choked out between sobs. "He's having a baby with someone else. He said I'm broken. He said—" "Stop," my mother said firmly, and I heard her own tears in her voice. "Stop right there. You listen to me, Marin Elizabeth. You are not broken. You hear me? That man is a coward and a fool, and you are worth 10 of him. Then why does it hurt so much?" I whispered. She was quiet for a long moment. "Because you loved him. Because you believed in him. But baby, the only person who can save you now is yourself. Do you understand me? You have to get up. You have to keep going." But I didn't know how. The next 3 months were the darkest of my life. I stopped eating. Food tasted like ash, and my stomach rejected everything anyway. I lost 15 pounds I didn't have to lose. My scrubs started hanging off my frame, and my coworkers started asking if I was sick. "I'm fine," I'd say, forcing a smile that felt like it was cracking my face. But I wasn't fine. I was drowning. I'd see pregnant women at the hospital, glowing, excited, their partners holding their hands during ultrasounds, and I'd have to excuse myself to cry in the supply closet. I'd hear babies crying in the maternity ward and feel my chest constrict so tight I couldn't breathe. At night, I'd lie in bed and replay every moment of my marriage, looking for signs I'd missed. Had James ever really loved me? Or had I just been a placeholder until someone better, someone fertile, someone whole came along? My phone would light up with social media notifications. James and Ashley were everywhere now, no longer hiding. His relationship status changed from married to in a relationship. Photos of them appeared. At restaurants, at the beach, her hand on her growing belly, his arm around her shoulders. One photo had a caption that made me physically sick. Finally found my forever. Can't wait to meet our son. Our son. The baby I couldn't give him. The future I'd failed to provide. I deleted all my social media that night. I couldn't watch him build the life I'd dreamed of with someone else. The divorce was finalized on a Tuesday in October. I sat in the courthouse hallway, waiting for my name to be called, watching couples walk in and out. Some looked relieved. Some looked devastated. I just felt numb. James didn't even show up. His lawyer handled everything. Mr. Mitchell is attending a prenatal appointment with his partner, the lawyer explained smoothly, like it was a perfectly reasonable excuse. He trusts the proceedings will be handled professionally. The judge asked me a few questions. Did I understand the terms? Did I agree to the settlement? Was I signing of my own free will? Yes, I said to everything. What else could I say? No, Your Honor, I don't agree that my marriage should end because I couldn't get pregnant. No, I don't consent to being replaced by a younger model who can give him what I can't. The gavel came down with a final, decisive crack. Divorce granted. Just like that. 7 years together, erased in 15 minutes. I walked out of the courthouse into gray autumn rain, and I remember thinking that the weather matched my insides perfectly. Cold. Empty. Relentless. That night, I almost didn't answer the door when someone knocked. It was late, after 10 p.m., and I was already in my pajamas, staring at the television without actually watching anything. But the knocking was persistent, and eventually, I dragged myself up and looked through the peephole. Michelle, James's sister. I hadn't seen her since James left. She texted me a few times. Awkward, apologetic messages that I'd never responded to. What was there to say? Your brother destroyed me. Hope you're having a nice day. But now she was standing on my porch in the rain, her face streaked with tears, and something in her expression made me open the door. Mauren, she said, her voice breaking. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Michelle, what are you? He lied to me, she interrupted, stepping inside without invitation. James lied to all of us. He told us you wanted the divorce. He said you'd grown apart, that it was mutual, that you'd both decided you wanted different things. I closed the door slowly, my heart starting to pound. What? I found out yesterday, Michelle continued, wiping her face with shaking hands. I was at Mom's house, and I overheard him on the phone with Ashley. He was laughing about it. Laughing, Mauren. He said, she took a shaky breath. He said you were pathetic, that you begged him to stay, that you were so desperate to have a baby you would have bankrupted yourself on fertility treatments. The words hit me like physical blows. He told Ashley that leaving you was the best decision he ever made, Michelle whispered, fresh tears streaming down her face. He said you were a burden, that you were holding him back from his real life. I felt something inside me crack and then harden, like ice forming over a deep lake, cold and unbreakable. Why are you telling me this? I asked, my voice flat. Because you deserve to know what kind of monster my brother is, Michelle said fiercely. Because our parents raised him better than this, and I'm ashamed to share his DNA. And because, she reached into her purse and pulled out an envelope. Because he's planning something cruel, and I wanted to warn you. She handed me the envelope. Inside was a baby shower invitation. Blue and white, gold lettering. A photo of James and Ashley, her belly prominent, both of them beaming at the camera. And at the bottom, in James's handwriting, thought you want to celebrate with us. No hard feelings. Jay. No hard feelings. I read those words 3 times before I could speak. He's inviting me to his baby shower. To humiliate you, Michelle said, her voice sharp with anger. I heard him planning it with Ashley. They think it's funny. They want you to show up so they can show everyone how well he's moved on, how much better his life is without you. They want to parade their perfect little family in front of you like some sick trophy. The rage that rose in me then was unlike anything I'd ever felt. It was cold, calculated. It burned without heat. Mauren, Michelle said carefully. Are you okay? I looked up at her and smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. I'm perfect. Thank you for telling me. After Michelle left, I sat at my kitchen table with that invitation in front of me and felt something shift inside me. Some fundamental change in who I was and what I was willing to accept. James thought I was broken. He thought I'd spend the rest of my life mourning what I couldn't have shrinking into the shadows while he lived in the sun. He thought he destroyed me. But he didn't know that sometimes destruction is just preparation for something stronger to grow. I kept that invitation, pinned it to my refrigerator with a magnet, and every morning when I saw it, I felt that cold rage solidify into something sharper. Not revenge. Not yet. First, I had to survive, and then I had to become the woman he never saw coming. 3 weeks after the divorce was finalized, I woke up at 6 a.m. and threw up. At first, I thought it was grief. I'd been nauseous on and off for months, ever since James left. Stress, my doctor had said. Depression. My body trying to process what my mind couldn't accept. But this was different. This was violent, urgent, undeniable. I made it to the bathroom just in time, and when I was finished, I sat on the cold tile floor with my head against the wall, trying to breathe. When was my last period? The question floated up from somewhere in the fog of my brain, and I realized with a jolt that I couldn't remember. Months, maybe. But that wasn't unusual. Stress had made my cycles irregular for years. The doctors had told me it was one of the factors complicating our fertility issues. Still, something made me dig through the bathroom cabinet until I found an old pregnancy test. Left over from 2 years ago, back when taking them had been a monthly ritual of hope and heartbreak. I took it with shaking hands, then set it on the counter and walked away. I couldn't watch. Couldn't stand another single line mocking me with its emptiness. I made coffee, fed the stray cat that had started coming to my back door, checked my work schedule for the week, and when 10 minutes had passed, I walked back into the bathroom. 2 lines. I blinked, looked again. 2 lines. Dark, unmistakable, real. Pregnant. The test fell from my hands and clattered into the sink. No, that wasn't possible. James and I had tried for 3 years. 3 years of tests and specialists and temperatures and timing and nothing. And now, weeks after he'd left me for someone else, after he told me I was barren and broken and incapable, now I was pregnant. I sank to the floor again, this time because my legs wouldn't hold me. And I started to laugh. Hysterical, breathless, unhinged laughter that turned into sobs, and then back to laughter again. The universe had the cruelest sense of humor. Dr. Patterson confirmed it 3 days later. "You're about 8 weeks along," she said, looking at the ultrasound screen with a professional smile. "Everything looks healthy so far. I know this must be a shock, given your history, but sometimes these things happen when we least expect." "Wait," I interrupted, staring at the grainy black and white image on the screen. "What is that?" Dr. Patterson leaned closer, adjusted the wand, and then her expression changed. Surprise flickered across her face, followed by something like wonder. "Mauren," she said slowly, "you're not just pregnant. You're having twins." The room tilted. "What?" "Twins," she repeated, pointing to 2 distinct blobs on the screen. "See here? 2 gestational sacs. 2 heartbeats." She turned up the volume, and suddenly the room was filled with the rapid flutter of not 1 but 2 tiny hearts beating. Thump, 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 thump. Like little war drums. Like thunder. Like proof that life happens in its own time, following its own rules, indifferent to our pain and our planning. "Twins," I whispered, and this time when tears came, they were different. Not grief. Not rage. Wonder. Terror. Hope. "I know this is probably overwhelming," Dr. Patterson said gently, "especially given your recent divorce. Do you have support? Family? Friends who can help you through this?" I couldn't speak. Couldn't process. All I could do was stare at that screen at the 2 tiny beings growing inside me. James's children. The babies he'd told me I'd never have. The family he'd said I'd stolen from him by being broken. "Mauren," Dr. Patterson prompted. I tore my eyes away from the screen and looked at her. "Don't tell anyone," I said, my voice suddenly fierce. "Please. Not yet. I need time to figure this out." She nodded slowly. "Of course. Patient confidentiality. But Mauren, you will need to start prenatal care soon. These are high-risk pregnancies, especially given your age and history. You'll need regular appointments, possibly a specialist." "I know," I said. "I'm a nurse. I know what I need. I need time." She printed out pictures of the ultrasound and handed them to me in a folder. 2 grainy images of 2 tiny blobs, each no bigger than a raspberry. My children. My twins. My secret. I didn't tell James. That decision came immediately, instinctively, and with absolute certainty. He'd made his choice. He'd walked away from me, from us, from any possibility of a future together. He called me broken and barren, and replaced me before the bed was even cold. He didn't deserve to know about this miracle. More than that, I didn't trust him. What if he tried to take them from me? What if he claimed I'd hidden the pregnancy to spite him? What if he dragged me back to court and fought for custody of children he'd never wanted when they were just a dream? No, these babies were mine. My body had created them. My body would carry them. My life would shape them. James had made it clear he wanted nothing to do with the broken woman I was. He didn't get to change his mind now that she was growing his children inside her. So I kept the secret locked tight in my chest and started planning. The first thing I did was move. I couldn't raise children in the house James and I had shared, couldn't watch them play in the yard where we'd planned our imaginary family. Every room was haunted with memories of what we'd been and what he destroyed. I found a small 2-bedroom apartment across town. Nothing fancy, just clean, safe, affordable. A fresh start in a place that had never known him. I worked as many shifts as the hospital would give me, saving every penny I could. I knew once the babies came, I'd have to take maternity leave. I'd have to live on reduced income. I needed a cushion, a safety net, proof that I could do this alone. Because I was alone. My mother helped when she could, but she lived 3 hours away and had her own life. My friends had scattered during the divorce, some taking James aside, some just uncomfortable with the messiness of it all. Michelle checked in occasionally, but she had her own guilt and family drama to navigate. It was just me, and 2 growing lives that kicked and rolled and reminded me every day that I was stronger than James had ever given me credit for. The pregnancy was hard. Twin pregnancies always are, but mine seemed determined to test every limit. Morning sickness lasted all day and into the night. My back ached constantly. My feet swelled, so badly I had to buy new shoes every month. I developed gestational diabetes and had to monitor my blood sugar 4 times a day. But I kept working, kept showing up to 12-hour shifts, kept holding patients' hands and checking vitals and administering medications, even when my body screamed for rest. "You should take it easy," my coworker Sandra said one night, watching me lean against the nurse's station to catch my breath. "You're 6 months pregnant with twins, Maren. You're allowed to slow down." "I'm fine," I said, forcing myself upright. "You're exhausted." "I'm a single mother," I corrected. "I don't get to be exhausted." But alone in my apartment at night, I was terrified. What if I couldn't do this? What if I wasn't enough? Not enough money, not enough energy, not enough love to give 2 children everything they needed. What if James had been right, and I was fundamentally broken in ways that went deeper than fertility? I'd sit in the nursery I was slowly setting up, 2 cribs I'd found at a thrift store, painted white by hand, and talk to my babies. "I don't know what I'm doing," I'd whisper, my hands on my swollen belly. "But I promise you this, I will love you. I will protect you. I will never, ever make you feel like you're not enough." And they'd respond with kicks and tumbles, like they were telling me they believed me. I found out their genders at 28 weeks. 1 boy, 1 girl, the ultrasound technician said with a smile. A perfect pair. A boy. A girl. Emma and Noah. The names James and I had chosen together in another life, when we believed our future was certain. I'd thought about choosing different names, something that was just mine, not contaminated by him. But these names had been chosen with love, back when love was still real. And I wanted my children to have that. The good parts. The hope we'd once shared. So Emma and Noah they became. I was 34 weeks pregnant when the invitation arrived. I'd almost forgotten about it in the chaos of preparing for twins. But there it was in my mailbox one afternoon in early June, the baby shower invitation Michelle had warned me about. Blue and white, gold lettering, James and Ashley beaming. Please join us in celebrating baby boy Johnson. June 15th, 2 p.m., the Mitchell family estate. And at the bottom, in James's handwriting, "Thought you'd want to celebrate with us. No hard feelings." I stood in my kitchen, 8.5 months pregnant with twins, and read those words over and over. No hard feelings. Like he hadn't ripped my heart out. Like he hadn't told me I was worthless. Like he hadn't moved on with someone else, while I was still trying to figure out how to breathe without him. No hard feelings. And that's when the idea crystallized. Not revenge, exactly. Something else. Something quieter and more powerful. Justice. I looked down at my enormous belly, where Emma and Noah were running out of room and kicking up a storm, and I smiled. "What do you think, babies?" I whispered. "Should we go to a party?" Emma kicked hard against my ribs, like she was saying yes. And for the first time in months, I felt something I hadn't felt since James left. Power. The morning of June 15th, I woke up to Emma kicking my bladder and Noah doing somersaults against my ribs. I know, I murmured, rubbing my belly. Big day. I barely slept. Not from nerves, I was past nerves, but from anticipation. From the knowledge that today, everything James thought he knew about me, about us, about the narrative he'd constructed to justify his cruelty, was about to shatter. I took my time getting ready. I chose a dress I bought specifically for this occasion, emerald green, fitted but comfortable, with a wrap style that accentuated my post-pregnancy figure without trying too hard. I'd lost most of the baby weight in the past 4 months, but I still looked different. Softer. Stronger. Like a woman who'd been through war and come out wielding the sword. My hair, which I usually threw into a messy bun for work, I curled into soft waves. Minimal makeup, just enough to look polished, put together, like someone who'd been thriving, not merely surviving. When I looked in the mirror, I barely recognized myself. The woman staring back wasn't the broken, hollow-eyed ghost who'd signed divorce papers 18 months ago. This woman had fire in her eyes. Purpose. A secret that blazed beneath her calm exterior like coals waiting to ignite. Emma and Noah were already dressed in their matching outfits. Tiny button-down shirts and khaki pants for Noah, a white dress with small flowers for Emma. They looked like they'd stepped out of a catalog, their dark curls, James's curls, shining in the morning light, their brown eyes, also James's, wide and curious. "Mommy, where are we going?" Noah asked for the 3rd time, bouncing on his toes. "To a party," I said, kneeling down to fix his collar. "A special party where Mommy used to know some people." "Will there be cake?" Emma asked, ever practical. "Probably," I said, smiling. "Lots of cake." I'd thought about this moment for months. Rehearsed it. Imagined every possible scenario. But now that it was here, my hands were steady. My heart was calm. This wasn't about revenge. Not really. This was about truth. About showing James, and everyone who'd believed his lies, exactly what he'd walked away from. I buckled the twins into their car seats, grabbed my purse, and took one last look at my reflection in the rearview mirror. "Let's go show them what a miracle looks like," I whispered to my children. And I drove toward the address on the invitation. The Mitchell family estate was exactly as I remembered it. Sprawling, pretentious, dripping with old money and even older judgment. James's parents had hosted our wedding rehearsal dinner here, and his mother had spent the entire evening making passive-aggressive comments about my humble background and whether I understood the expectations of their family. Now, as I pulled up to the circular driveway, already packed with luxury cars, I felt a grim satisfaction. They'd all come. All the people who'd watched my marriage crumble and said nothing. All the society friends who'd sided with James because it was easier, cleaner, more convenient. They were all here to celebrate his new life. His perfect life. The life he'd built on the ashes of mine. I parked, took a deep breath, and got out of the car. The afternoon was beautiful, warm sun, clear blue sky, the kind of day that belonged in a romantic movie. Which made what I was about to do even more delicious. I opened the back door and unbuckled Emma first, then Noah. They climbed out, looking around with wide-eyed wonder at the manicured gardens and elaborate decorations. "Mommy, this place is big," Noah whispered, reaching for my hand. "It is," I agreed, taking his hand and then Emma's. "But we're not here to be impressed. We're here to make an impression." "Ready?" They nodded, though I could see Emma was nervous. She squeezed my hand tighter. "It's okay, baby," I said softly. "Mommy's got you." We walked up the stone pathway toward the backyard, following the sound of laughter and music. The decorations were visible from the driveway, blue and white balloons creating archways, a massive dessert table laden with treats, a banner proclaiming, "Welcome Baby Boy Johnson." And there, near the entrance to the backyard, stood a small sign, "Please enter. Baby shower in progress." I stopped for just a moment, looking down at my children. "Mommy, why is everyone staring at us?" Emma asked, her small voice cutting through my thoughts. I realized we'd already stepped into view. The party was spread out across the perfectly landscaped backyard, and dozens of eyes had already locked onto us. I squeezed her hand gently and smiled down at her, then at Noah. "Because," I said softly, my voice steady despite the thundering in my chest, "sometimes people forget that miracles happen when they're not watching." And with my head held high and my children's hands in mine, I walked into the party. The effect was immediate and devastating. Conversations died mid-sentence. Champagne glasses froze halfway to lips. Someone dropped their plate, and it shattered on the patio stones with a crash that seemed to echo across the entire estate. Every single person turned to stare at me, at us, at the impossible vision of James's ex-wife, the woman he'd called barren, broken, incapable, standing in front of them with two 4-year-old children who looked exactly like him. I scanned the crowd and found him immediately. James stood frozen near the punch bowl, his face drained of all color. His mouth had fallen open slightly, his eyes wide with something between shock and horror. He was wearing an expensive suit, his hair perfectly styled, playing the role of proud father-to-be. Next to him, Ashley had one hand protectively over her very pregnant belly, the other clutching James's arm. Her face had gone from glowing to pale in seconds, her eyes darting between me and the twins with growing panic. I took a breath and walked forward, the crowd parting like water before us. The DJ's music was still playing, something cheerful and upbeat that now felt obscenely out of place. Someone had the presence of mind to turn it off, and suddenly the only sounds were birds chirping in the trees and my heels clicking against the stone patio. "Mauren!" James's voice came out strangled, barely above a whisper. What are you doing here?" I stopped about 10 feet from him, close enough that everyone could hear but far enough to maintain my dignity. Emma and Noah pressed against my legs, sensing the tension but not understanding it. "You invited me," I said calmly, reaching into my purse and pulling out the invitation. I held it up for everyone to see. "See, thought you'd want to celebrate with us. No hard feelings. So here I am, celebrating." His eyes dropped to the children, then shot back up to my face. I watched the gears turning in his mind, watched him trying to process what he was seeing, trying to find some explanation that made sense. "Those," he swallowed hard, "those aren't your children." I finished for him, my voice still perfectly calm. "Actually, they are. Meet Emma and Noah. They're 4 years old, born October 23rd, approximately 9 months after our last intimate encounter before you left me." The gasps from the crowd were audible now. Whispers erupted like wildfire. Ashley's face had gone from pale to gray. "James, what is she talking about?" But James couldn't speak. He was staring at the twins like they were ghosts, and in a way they were ghosts of the future he'd told himself could never exist with me. "That's impossible," he finally managed. "You couldn't. We tried for years, and you never." "I was 8 weeks pregnant when you left me," I said, and my voice carried across the entire yard. Everyone was listening now, hanging on every word. "When you told me I was broken. When you said I'd never be a mother. When you walked out for someone who could give you what I supposedly couldn't." I watched the truth crash over him like a wave. "I found out 3 weeks after our divorce was finalized," I continued. "And yes, I could have told you. Could have dragged you back to court. Could have demanded child support and custody arrangements and all the legal entanglements you hate so much." I paused, but I didn't. "Because you'd made your choice, James. You chose to believe I was worthless. You chose to replace me before the divorce was even final. You chose to tell everyone I was the problem." "Mauren, his voice cracked. "So I raised them myself," I said, speaking over him. "Every sleepless night, every diaper change, every fever, every milestone, every moment of joy and terror and exhaustion. I did it alone, because you didn't want broken me. You didn't want the woman who couldn't give you children." I looked down at Emma and Noah, who were watching me with those big, trusting eyes. Except I could, I said softly. I did. And they're beautiful. The silence was deafening. Ashley was crying now, tears streaming down her face, her hand still protectively over her belly. James, tell me she's lying. Tell me those aren't your children. But James couldn't say anything. He was staring at Noah, at Emma, at their faces that were unmistakably mirrors of his own features. The dark curls, the brown eyes, the shape of their noses, their chins. There was no denying it. How? He finally found his voice, though it came out hoarse. How could you not tell me? How could you keep my children from me? And there it was. The audacity. The narcissism. Even now, faced with the consequences of his own cruelty, he was making himself the victim. Something in me snapped. You want to know why I didn't tell you? My voice was no longer calm. It was steel. It was ice. Because you called me broken, James. You told me I was less than a woman because I couldn't get pregnant. You replaced me like I was a defective appliance. You laughed about me to your new girlfriend. I took a step closer, and he actually flinched. You don't deserve to know them, I said, my voice low and fierce. You don't deserve to watch them grow up. You don't deserve their love, or their trust, or even their acknowledgement. Because a real father doesn't abandon his wife when she's struggling. A real father doesn't mock her pain. A real father doesn't throw away his family and then act surprised when they don't come crawling back. I didn't know, he said desperately. I swear, I didn't know you were pregnant. You didn't ask. The words exploded out of me. You didn't care. You saw what you wanted to see. A broken woman who'd failed you. It never occurred to you that maybe, just maybe, the problem wasn't me. That maybe the problem was the stress of being married to a man who saw me as a baby-making machine instead of a person. The crowd was completely silent now. I could see James's mother clutching her pearls, his father's face red with embarrassment. Michelle was standing near the back, tears streaming down her face, nodding at every word I said. Mauron, please. James tried again. I'm sorry. I was wrong. I was so wrong. But they're my children. I have rights. Rights. I laughed, and it was a bitter sound. You want to talk about rights? You gave up your rights when you told me I'd never be a mother. When you made me believe I was worthless. When you moved on with someone else before our bed was even cold. I pulled out my phone and held it up. You want rights? Here's what I have, James. Medical records showing I was pregnant during our divorce. Text messages from you calling me pathetic and broken. Testimony from your own sister about how you planned this baby shower specifically to humiliate me. Michelle stepped forward then, her voice shaking but strong. It's true. He told me he invited her to rub his new life in her face. He wanted her to see what she'd missed out on. James's face went from pale to red. Michelle, shut up. No, Michelle said firmly. I won't. Not anymore. I'm done protecting you from your own cruelty. Ashley was sobbing openly now. James, what have you done? What have you done? What he always does, I said, my voice returning to that deadly calm. He thinks only about himself, his needs, his wants, his perfect image. I looked around at the crowd of people who'd come to celebrate James's new family, who'd sided with him during our divorce, who believed his lies about me. You all believed him, I said, my voice carrying. When he said I was the problem. When he said I was difficult, emotional, unreasonable. You believed him because it was easier than asking questions. Because James is charming and successful and comes from the right family. No one met my eyes. But now you see the truth, I continued. And now you have to live with knowing you celebrated a man who abandoned his pregnant wife, who lied to everyone he knew, who planned a party specifically to humiliate the woman he destroyed. I knelt down next to Emma and Noah, making sure they couldn't see my face as I fought back tears. Come on, babies, I said softly. Let's go home. But what about the cake? Emma asked, her voice small. I smiled through the emotion clogging my throat. We'll get better cake. I promise. As I stood and turned to leave, James's voice stopped me. Wait! I turned back, and I was surprised to see tears on his face. Real tears. I'm sorry, he said, his voice breaking. Mauron, I'm so sorry. You were right about everything. I was cruel. I was selfish. I threw away the best thing in my life because I was too stupid and too arrogant to see what I had. For a moment, just a brief, flickering moment, I saw the man I'd fallen in love with. The one who'd proposed in the rain and made me believe in forever. But that man was gone. If he'd ever really existed at all. I know you are, I said quietly. But sorry doesn't change what you did. Sorry doesn't give me back the nights I cried myself to sleep. Sorry doesn't erase the years of pain you caused. Sorry doesn't make you a father to children you never wanted. I want to know them, he said desperately. Please. They're my children too. They're my children, I corrected him. They have my last name. They call me Mommy. They don't know you exist. And unless you want to put them through custody battles and DNA tests and trauma they don't deserve, that's how it's going to stay. I saw the realization dawn on his face. The understanding that I held all the cards. That he'd thrown away every right he might have had when he called me broken and walked away. Contact my lawyer if you want to discuss anything legal, I said. But I'm warning you, James. If you try to force your way into their lives now, after everything you've done, I will make sure every judge in the state knows exactly what kind of man you are. And I have the evidence to prove it. His face crumpled. I turned to Ashley, who was still crying, her hand over her belly. Take care of yourself, I said, and I meant it. Being pregnant is hard. Being married to James is harder. I hope your baby brings you more joy than pain. She looked at me with something like horror and pity mixed together, and I realized she was finally seeing who she'd married, what she'd gotten herself into. I took Emma and Noah's hands and walked toward the exit. Behind me, I heard the whisper start. Heard someone say, "Oh my God," and someone else say, "Did you know?" Heard the party beginning to unravel as people processed what they'd just witnessed. But I didn't look back. I'd spent too many years looking back, trying to fix what James had broken, trying to be enough for a man who would never see my worth. Now I was looking forward. We stopped for ice cream on the way home. "Mommy, why was that man crying?" Noah asked around a mouthful of chocolate. "Because he realized he made a mistake," I said, wiping Emma's face with a napkin. "Was he sad?" Emma asked. "Yes, baby. Very sad. Are you sad, Mommy?" I looked at my children, my beautiful, perfect, miracle children, and smiled. "No, sweetheart. I'm not sad at all." And for the first time in years, it was completely true. That evening, after I'd put Emma and Noah to bed, I sat on my couch with a cup of tea and finally let myself process what had happened. My phone had been buzzing all afternoon. Michelle had called 3 times, texted a dozen more, apologizing and thanking me and saying she was cutting ties with James until he got therapy. Several people from the party had somehow gotten my number and reached out, some to apologize, some to gossip, some to say they'd always suspected James wasn't telling the truth. I ignored most of them, but one text made me pause. It was from Ashley. "I'm sorry for what I did to you. I'm sorry for believing his lies. I'm sorry for being part of your pain. I hope your children know how lucky they are to have you." I stared at that message for a long time. Part of me wanted to be petty, to tell her she deserved whatever happened next. But the bigger part of me, the part that had grown through suffering and come out stronger, just felt tired. Tired of anger. Tired of pain. Tired of carrying the weight of James's mistakes. I typed out a response. "Thank you. I hope you find happiness. And if you ever need to talk to someone who understands what you're going through, I'm here." Because that's what survival teaches you. That cruelty is easy, but compassion takes courage. That holding grudges hurts you more than the person you're grudging against. That sometimes the best revenge isn't revenge at all, it's healing. 3 months later, I got a letter from James's lawyer. He wanted to discuss a custody arrangement. He wanted to be part of Emma and Noah's lives. He wanted to try to make things right. I read the letter 3 times, then filed it away in a folder labeled later. Because the truth was, Emma and Noah didn't need him. They had me. They had my mother, who drove down every weekend to spoil them rotten. They had their preschool friends and their little routines and their happy, stable life. Maybe one day, when they were older, I'd tell them about their father. I'd let them decide if they wanted a relationship with him. But that would be their choice, not his. Not mine. For now, they were children. Innocent and loved and protected from the ugliness of adult mistakes. And I was a mother. Not broken. Not barren. Not less than. Just a mother, doing her best, loving her children with everything she had. People ask me sometimes if I regret what I did. If I wish I'd handled it differently. If showing up to that baby shower with Emma and Noah was too cruel, too calculated, too much. And I always say the same thing. James spent years making me believe I was worthless. He destroyed my sense of self, my belief in my own value, my hope for the future. He walked away from our marriage without a second thought and invited me to his new life specifically to humiliate me one last time. All I did was show up and tell the truth. Is that revenge? Maybe. But it's also justice. And sometimes, in this messy, complicated, painful world, justice looks a lot like walking into a room with your head held high and your children by your side, showing everyone who doubted you exactly what you're made of. So no, I don't regret it. I'd do it again in a heartbeat. If you made it this far, you understand what the story is really about. It's not about revenge. It's about reclaiming your power. It's about refusing to let someone else's cruelty define you. It's about showing up for yourself when no one else will. If you've ever been told you're not enough, if you've ever been discarded or replaced or made to feel worthless, this story is for you. You are not broken. You are not less than. You are a survivor, and your comeback will always be stronger than their cruelty. Hit that like button right now. Subscribe to this channel. Share the story with someone who needs to hear it. And remember, the people who try to destroy you don't get to write your ending, you do. Leave a comment telling me, have you ever gotten the sweetest revenge just by existing? By being everything they said you'd never be? I want to hear your stories. Until next time, remember, sometimes the best revenge is just living well and thriving, despite everything, because of everything. Stay strong, stay fierce, and never let anyone tell you you're not enough. You are whole, you are worthy, and you are exactly who you're supposed to be.